Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Christiana Johnson and I'm an assistant professor at Kansas State University, right in the heart of the United States. As an architect and design educator, a significant portion of my practice and teaching has been working in rural communities across my state of Kansas. I've had the incredible opportunity to experience firsthand the resilience, work ethic, and dreams that the people of these communities embody through their own work. I appreciate the opportunity to share my speculations with you today, and I thank you for joining me. By the way, the image shown on this title slide is one of the Kansas prairie, a piece of our natural setting that many in both of our rural and urban communities seek to conserve, protect, and educate others about. A small piece of evidence that ultimately people share the same common values regardless of their rural or urban backgrounds. Reflecting on this thought, I would like to introduce this session titled The Rural to Urban Pipeline, Rurality as a Crucial Aspect of Urban Ecosystems. In this presentation, we will first discuss patterns of outmigration of youth from rural communities to urban cities and how this has largely been seen as a challenge to the vitality of rural areas. However, today, I will share with you why I believe this challenge is not the red flag many interpret it to be. Now let's begin. Walkability, culture, diversity, economic opportunity. These are just a few of the benefits that efforts of urbanization seek to give to communities. However, are these benefits exclusive to residents of urban areas or can they extend to rural communities? This paper explores a relationship between urbanism, rurality, and why rural areas must not be left behind in efforts to urbanize. Cities rely on the agricultural economies of rural areas for food and products that provide alternatives to fossil fuel energy and manufacturing materials. We all depend on the success of rural communities in our future. This diagram first visualizes the mean outmigration presented by Massey in 2020. Each circle of rural and urban represent the general population of each, taking birth and consideration into account. Reasons for outmigration defined by Alexander in 2023 included leaving for higher education, exploring a sense of anonymity and experimentation in urban cities, and self-development. If this outmigration is a regular occurrence over, say, 10 years, then rural communities will surely cease to exist in the future. But that hasn't been the case, has it? Yes, it is true that rural communities are struggling through issues such as brain drain, a loss of their tax base and taxpayers, struggles to maintain their economies and keep amenities in the community, but they haven't fully ceased to exist. Why might that be? An important aspect to note is that this is the half of the pattern that has been highlighted the most historically. The other element of this pattern is that there are also those who do eventually return back to their home in rural communities. Additional research by Alexander in 2023 showed that at least some of young outmigrants become community returners, either through paths that were planned or people who realized later that they had a desire to come back to their community. Reasons in the paper cited were the sense of community found in their hometown, a career opportunity to provide a service after leaving for higher education, coming back to a partner, and put succinctly, a love of the land. Knowing that rural and urban populations operate on this somewhat cyclical process, I ask the questions, how can design and policy better facilitate this pipeline and provide positive outcomes for both rural and urban settings? As well as, how do we provide urban amenities in rural places for resident retention while also supporting a beneficial exchange of residents from rural to urban areas? Rather than focusing on the tired debate of rural versus urban, how can symbiosis be created between the two to better the lives of all, no matter where they live? Before we get into potential solutions, I want to first provide an overview of strengths and weaknesses of both rural and urban settings. These help frame the design problems that the prototype concept that will be presented in the next slide seeks to resolve. In rural communities, the strengths we often see are a connection to place or a love of land, a sense of community. These people, because they love the land, are conservation minded. They have a knowledge of working the land with their hands. And then there's also a desire inherently for landscape and open space. Common weaknesses are a lack of higher education opportunity. The communities lack the infrastructure and population to support a university or a community college. We often also see high poverty rates and a lack of jobs, and then limited amenities, childcare, for example. In urban settings, the strengths are opportunities for higher education, vocational technology schools, universities, community colleges. There's an opportunity to experiment or self-develop yourself if you are a person of youth. And there are a high degree of amenities, cultural, dining, entertainment, and such. We also have better job opportunities in urban settings, but on the contrary, the weaknesses might include a lack of community, a higher cost of living, and also there is a heightened risk factor for isolation and mental health issues. The context for the design prototype that will be presented is Spearville, Kansas. This paper speculates the symbiosis between rural and urban and the heritage and conservation awareness that can be provided with a public amenity that is for all ages while tackling common issues in rural communities. Understanding the pipeline between rural and urban economies, the two should support one another and provide an exchange of residents and amenities with unique ecological perspectives between one another. To shape my perspective in finding solutions for the design of this concept, I've used observations I've been fortunate enough to make through my experience and research work over the past few years. In working with rural communities across Kansas, I've learned that there are three common patterns among many communities today. First, there's a lack of childcare. There are some public-private partnerships to provide funding for childcare facilities for in-home providers, as I've seen, and there are also grassroots efforts to bring more providers to communities. In addition, there's a lack of fresh food and grocery access. These markets, when they do exist, also have thin profit margins that create a need for income diversification and or public-private partnerships once again. The third is not necessarily an issue, but a pattern that I've noted. Because of the lack of amenities, people have had to be innovative with agritourism and entrepreneurship. So I've seen an increase in incubator kitchens where you might have a small-scale professional baker or chef who needs a commercial kitchen to provide product for their customers. And there's also a need for community gatherings on a small scale in event spaces. So there's an increased prevalence of those in these small communities. Now that we've discussed patterns and issues in relation to the regional context, I'd like to discuss the issues and assets specific to this particular community. So this community's name is Spearville. It's a real community in western Kansas. The challenges that I noted that this community faces were first a lack of access to childcare. This is addressed now, but the design prototype does propose strategies for how to strengthen the relationship between the child care center and other amenities and assets in the community. In addition, there's a lack of a grocery store here. The closest is a 22-minute drive in the neighboring city of Dodge City. They also have a declining population here. There was a negative 2.15% decline since the 2020 census. This is also a bedroom town, meaning that people commute from their home here to other cities to work. As a result, this town has less amenities than metro areas around it. The assets, however, that this community possesses, there's actually really great walkability because of this central downtown core and then the safe sidewalks and streets that surround it in the residential areas. There's a strong community. People are willing to help each other and they know most of the people in their town. There's a relationship to agriculture and the land, and there's also a heritage awareness and the desire to strengthen this awareness. People are very proud of their community here. Now I'd like to talk about some themes that were pulled from those community aspects, and I sought to put them into the design of the prototype. These themes are heritage, honoring the historic downtown, the train depot that's still extant, and the existing mural of the landscape seen on the red brick building. A love of land, again, the many residents have ties to agriculture and the land, and then maintaining a sense of community and further strengthening it. This is a tight-knit town They have some community events throughout the year, parades, events such as that in the downtown, and also a relationship to the land. So this is an image taken from Google Maps of the proposed site. You can see the primary project site is the two historic buildings. To the left in this image is a vacant lot. That would be to the south, if looking at this in a plan. Then we have the two historic buildings. There is a vacant lot, which has some opportunity to be reused as something there for the community. And then there's the historic depot building. Now we can look at some opportunities for this site. The vacant lot to the south of the red brick buildings could become a pocket park that could have a playground for the child care center that could be opened up to the community as well. The two-story red brick building could become the community center that I mentioned so many other smaller towns are looking for. They're looking for an opportunity for a small gathering place that can be used for seniors or young people or a variety of both, or people who are in between those two different age groups. The community garden could be used as a place to learn more about agriculture and to further instill a love of land into perhaps the children who are attending the child care center. And then the train depot is proposed in this prototype concept as a university outreach. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Now looking at the opportunities for this site in plan view, I will start with the Child Care Community Center that's at the center of this plan. So this is a 2-block building. The left building is the 1-story portion and the right is the 2-story portion. Adjacent to that, you can see the Lancer Center to the far left of this plan. That's an existing teenage hangout spot. So you could leverage some relationships there with this community center proposed. You can also see the new community pocket park with a playground that can be shared between the child care center and the community, as well as dedicated play areas on the exterior for the child care classrooms. To the right of the Child Care Community Center, you can see the community garden where people can come and be together and grow things and work the land themselves. And then there's the historic depot building, which is proposed as a university outreach post. This drawing shows the inside of the building and its proposed design. The green highlighted box focuses on the community center first in this presentation, and this is a space that doubles uses with the child care center but can be enclosed as its own entity after child care business hours. The commercial kitchen is used for child care meals but can be rented to local caterers and self-employed chefs and bakers for their businesses. Within the community center, you can see at the back there's storage for tables and chairs. There are restrooms. The incubator kitchen is again highlighted. And then at the street side, towards the front of this long, narrow building, is the community workshop or gathering space. So this can hold events for around 50 people, so smaller gatherings, but there is a need for that in these communities. In this drawing, the child care center is now highlighted by the orange boxes. So there's a first floor component, and then the drawing to the right is the second floor of the building. So the child care center offers infant care to preschool age care and education. Infants and toddlers in our state are relegated to the first floor per our regulations, while preschool age children can be on the second. So this prototype does follow some state and local regulations for childcare. During hours of care, the community center doubles as the preparation space for breakfast, lunch, and snack. The open space for community events can also serve as a flexible play space during inclement weather. In these plans, you can see how the space is actually broken down. The first floor includes a director's office. An entry on the outside, there's the pocket park equipment to be utilized by the child care, also infant and toddler classrooms, as well as staff restrooms to be used in the community center. On the second floor, we also have 2 preschool classrooms. Now that we've discussed the prototype or concept, I want to answer this question of how does this benefit rurality and urbanism? First, let's go over the rural to urban benefits, thinking about the youth that outmigrate to urban settings. By further fostering the love of land concept in rural children, this enhances their desire to work the land in urban settings. This contributes towards trends in urban agriculture, providing urban community gardens and vertical farming, as we see a further need for that moving into the future. Those that move to the urban settings will also seek a sense of community. Rural outmigrants find and create their own communities modeled after what they learned in their rural setting. This will address urban isolationism. By enhancing urban agriculture and a sense of community, we can provide higher quality urban open space and outdoor recreation. The urban to rural benefits, those who return back to the rural community later in life, these returners bring back higher education, potentially degrees or just training. This restores brain drain and brings new technology and cutting edge knowledge to the rural communities. In the urban settings, the returners also witness new business models and ideas. This contributes to an increased entrepreneurship in rural areas. They experience walkable communities. This brings an understanding of the importance of physical movement and preventing a sedentary lifestyle in rural communities. Returners also bring a new desire for cultural amenities, and this addresses a rural lack of amenities. Perhaps they can create new ones through those entrepreneurship skills that they learn in the urban settings. So beyond a site building and a plan, a concept of this scale requires support, partnership, and the diversification of income to create a sustainable business model. This final section dives deeper into potential partnerships to support an endeavor such as this. Teo et al. Highlighted some challenges for urban agriculture in their article published in 2024. And two of the challenges for urban agriculture that they highlighted were a lack of knowledge and skill gaps, and also limited networking between universities, government, and industries. This restricts how we can actually flourish with urban agriculture, and I think these two challenges can also tie into other issues for rural communities also, such as childcare, grocery access, healthcare, things like that. So the solution for these challenges is to tap into the knowledge of rural communities and identify opportunities for networking education between communities and universities, government, and industries. Now, as was previously mentioned, the proposed streetscape image shared earlier showed the provision of university outreach in the old train depot building. Let's come back to why this integration is necessary. So first, the integration of higher education, academia, and industry provides best practices information in the latest research, not only for the community garden proposed, but the other amenities offered by the concept, childcare, business models, entrepreneurship, and more. This can also extend the knowledge developed in rural communities to other places as well. The need for state and government recognition and support is also an important integration. This keeps both the state and businesses up to date on community needs, funding opportunities, and more. And also, we must seek legislative opportunities to strengthen rural and urban relationships to make this a true symbiosis. And just a quote from a news article recently shared, with the heightened interest in growing food in the face of the pandemic, university urban extensions can serve as go-betweens for the average citizen in stored farming knowledge. So this is why we have to get higher education involved in a prototype such as this. To conclude this presentation, there is a good potential for the strengthening of an exchange between rural and urban communities. Rather than putting efforts into solving issues specifically for rural communities and urban cities isolated from one another, perhaps the right strategy is to look at the two holistically in the same system. By creating solutions that work for both settings, perhaps we can achieve a symbiosis that better diversifies and unites communities at the same time. Thank you for your time in watching my presentation today.